everyone, and welcome to your Business Morning. It's the final edition of the program, this Business Week, live from Abuja, Nigeria's political capital. I am Bosin Amafaye, and we thank you, everyone, for being with us for this week. Most of the week we've been here in Abuja. We're programming here, of course, with the Central Bank of Nigeria Revamped Monetary Policy Committee meeting, and we'll talk about that, the outlook on what the next monetary policy committee would be. But first, let's see one or two items that's making the headlines. Nigeria's government yesterday, Buhari's administration, actually unveiled the new Nigeria Economic Diplomacy Initiative. And if you're in the news, you see that already. That's been midwifed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, as well as the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission. All this were part of what we've seen in the last 24 hours. This will be something to look into very closely, and we'll be digesting the key objectives and the details of who does what and how this will be business unusual moving forward under this new initiative, the NEDI. Meantime, yesterday, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, checked in with Udoma's Ministry of Budget and National Planning regarding the ERGP focused laboratories that was formally unveiled by the President a few weeks ago. We'll see a little bit of that later on the program, what the Vice President had to say, and updates provided by the Superintendent Ministry and the Minister in charge of that. That's the man on your TV screen, Udoma, who is the Minister in charge of Budget and National Planning, is the one who is midwifing the ERGP. All this, of course, will be part of our discussions on the program when the new week resumes from Monday. But, of course, we have something very big to look into as we wrap up this week and start another one on Monday. On Tuesday, the 10th of April, the Nigerian government will make good its promise to be the first sovereign authority in sub-Saharan Africa to float what you called a green bond. Now we've got a confirmation from the marketplace in Lagos that the government will float this bond on the two securities exchanges in Lagos on Tuesday, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, before the closing bell at 2:30 local time, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, the bond would also be floated on the FMDQ OTC Securities Exchange. Lagos is where the green bond will be. The Ministry of Environment, the Debt Management Office, the Ministry of Finance will hear from all parties to this particular initiative, the first ever in sub-Saharan Africa. On Tuesday, we'll be drilling down on this beginning from Monday. Now, we have a lot to pack into today's edition, so let's get started and reviewing the market. 24 hours after the new Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank decided to leave all key interest rate parameters unchanged, the stock market turned north. We claw back some of the earlier losses, but this is one of the first gains we've seen over the last few sessions before we went for the long Easter holiday. The market index added 0.31% on the NSE All-Share Index. We're still below that 41,000. We claw back just a little above 40,000, but we could see 41,000 if all go well today on the marketplace. We're still below the 15 trillion naira psychological threshold for the equity cap at 14.765 trillion naira. In volume terms, we're on track with what we trade on Wednesday, the second trading day of the week. Monday, of course, was a public holiday. In naira value and in terms of deals, the market was consistent. But if you look at where the five major subsectors, how the pace that the banks brought some of the gains back on the block yesterday, when you look at the counters, the banking sector was better, 0.27%, consumer goods lost 0.83%, industrial goods, where you have the bellwethers like Dangote Cement, revving up the market on Thursday, added 0.65% to the all-share index. The insurance followed their cousins in the green territory, 0.4%, and the oil and gas still a little bit lackluster, 0.08%. We have a little bit more to talk about. One of the oil companies or the energy companies in our space. Move that up. And you talk about Owando. The technical suspension is about 6 months in the making. Now, the company is asking the Nigerian Stock Exchange to reconsider that technical suspension. But first, let's go through the oil stocks that we track on our market. A very small band of them, just about 12 of them. But let's get started with corn oil remaining in the gray territory. Forte oil was unchanged despite the transactions we had. Double one was unchanged. Investors decided not to move any of this needle despite the volume of shares traded. Eternal Oil was the only stock in that space that gave that subsector 4.66% on the back of 1.47 million ordinary shares when the market closed yesterday. 6 naira 29 kobo was the closing price on Eternal Oil. Japan lost 7.55%, fell below 53 kobo per share, fell below 50, and it's now heading back to where it started before the uprunning of the Melost Global Incorporated $350 million investment news. We saw 7.154 million ordinary shares of Japan Oil Maritime Services traded on Thursday. That's this for you there. The deepest cut we saw in that market space. We'll talk about the rest of the market later on the program as we move on along, but we'll have a lot to talk about. Let's get back to the big story around the Nigeria's Monetary Policy Committee decision, and they decide to leave all rate parameters unchanged on Wednesday when the meeting was concluded.